boy Stevie Jobber. It's your boy Dangerous Dude. The Dangerous Jobbers podcast. Play the one. The boy Stevie Jobber. Dangerous Dude. Stay dangerous.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm your boy Dangerous Duke.
And I'm your boy Stevie Jobber.
And this is the Dangerous Jobbers podcast. We flipping it and we doing something that we normally call the Dark Match.
Mm-hmm.
And this Dark Match segment is called Championship Swaps.
Mm-hmm.
So basically how this is going to go down is I came up with a list of people. Stevie came up with a list of people. We honed it down to 3 specific WWE champions or world champions that had title reigns that we would swap out for somebody else. Now, this could have been a person who was a champion one time. It could have been a person who was a champion 6, 7, 8, however many times. But specifically what we wanted to do is take a certain champion, whether it's the champion itself or their reign, and swap it for somebody who was never the WWE or world champion. Was that an easy way to describe it?
I think you explained it. I think you explained it in a very good way for the people to consume that.
Okay, so basically how it's gonna go down is Stevie's gonna name some people, I'm gonna name some people, and we're gonna say who we would replace their championship run with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's no easier way to do it than to jump right in. Stevie, do you want to take your first 3 or should I take my first 3?
Yeah, I'll start. I'll do my first 3. We doing them back to back to back?
No, you could do your 3. Like you could say your 1 and why,
we'll
and then and then you do your next one, then your next one, and then I'll jump and do the next ones.
So I'm going late 90s with the first one.
Okay.
No disrespect to the guy I'm swapping the championship out for. I just feel like, you have some personal favorites. I'm gonna take Kane's WWE Championship run from 90, I think it was 98. Kane never had long runs with the championship, and I feel like if you're not going to have a long run with it, we can probably toss it out the record books for somebody that could probably have a long run with it. I would swap Kane's late 98 run for the Blackheart, Owen Hart. Give a man the chance with the belt, you know what I mean? Change history a little bit. I think it would have added a lot of validation to Owen. I think there's a way better angle where they could have wrote Owen as the better Hart. And it just never got to fruition. They just never went that way. And in an alternate history, I feel like him having that championship in 98 would have really changed things.
Damn, you know what? And you said Kane, and I was like, oh, how can you discredit Kane? And then you say Owen, and it's like, all right, that does make some sense because there's some people in the IWC who tend to think Owen is the better wrestler than Brett. So I would tend to agree with that. So I'm not mad at that pick at all. I could definitely take Owen Hart over Kane.
How about you, man? Who's your first guy? Who are you saying no, this reign doesn't belong to you anymore? You don't deserve to be good enough for this month. Okay. Who's your first?
Well, hey, everything you said might actually line up perfectly with this. So I'm going to go to the late 80s, early 90s with this one. And you could pick whichever title reign you want from this man. He didn't need as many as he got. And I'm pretty sure most of them were kind of run dry anyway. So I'm going to take any title reign of Hulk Hogan and kick it straight out the window because there was a guy there that was doing some great things for the company. He was one of the best talkers on the mic at that time, if not the best talker on the mic at that time. And he never got that world title win. So I'm going to go with the hot rod, Roddy Piper, to replace Hulk Hogan for a championship reign as WWE champion.
Yeah, it's underrated. We don't give enough heels the championship when they probably should have got it. I feel like Roddy never winning the championship was an injustice.
Definitely, I could definitely say that's one of the biggest blunders in WWE history is the fact that Roddy never got to hold the world title. Great in the ring, great on the mic, beloved by fans, even though he was a heel for a majority of his run.
Mhm.
And Hulk Hogan speaks for itself, dude. You got so many reigns, and you had so many opportunities to be the face, and you were the face for so long, but you struggled to put people over unless you absolutely had no choice. And knowing what we know now with wrestling lore and wrestling history, you could have laid the hell down and let Roddy Piper get a world championship win.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, so Roddy Piper over Hulk Hogan for me for my first one.
I'm gonna say, um, I'm gonna take a trip to, let's go to 2010s. I
Mm-hmm.
think this might have been 2011.
Okay.
Um, let's circle back to a time, before how we feel about him now and how Mexico feels about him, and back when the rosters were split, but were the rosters split, and was it a good time for wrestling? Was it a bad time for wrestling? We're not really sure. All I know is there was a certain point in time where uh either one of the world championships was synonymous with Alberto Del Rio.
Mm-hmm.
And he essentially was the next step in what would be lucha representation for the company.
Agreed.
And in the 2011 run that he has, I say poo poo. Let's take it off of Del Rio. He never should have had a reign to begin with, knowing what we know now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kill Hitler's a baby. No, anyway, let's take Del Rio world championship out of there. I would replace that 2011 championship run with John Morrison. I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
thing Morrison's character was missing most. He was on such a trajectory. Even in the ECW days when he was establishing himself as a singles competitor. But that Eminem run, they came in super hot, if people remember. They split up Eminem. Morrison pretty much defines himself as the better guy. I am the Shawn Michaels of the group. And this is my whatever you want to call it, Sherry Martel or have you.
Marty Jannetty.
Marty Jannetty. Um, he splits with Melina, and then somewhere in there, we as a fan base are over enough on John Morrison to consider him a world champion.
Yeah.
And he just, for whatever reason, kept hitting roadblocks or injuries or what have you, and just never got there. I think that year we really crowned Del Rio. Things
Mm-hmm.
would have turned out differently had we chose John Morrison, and it probably would have altered his career for the better. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, you know what? I can actually agree with that because even before Del Rio, there was a time when I'm trying to think who was the champ before Del Rio. I believe it was Sheamus.
Mm-hmm.
And they were starting to give John Morrison those solo vignettes on Raw, like the backstage segments and whatnot of him doing parkour and everything. I want to say that was the time around Sheamus and Randy Orton were the champs. That would
Mm-hmm.
have been a good time to put it on him too. But even in the Del Rio run, when Del Rio was on SmackDown and he was just the champ, and it really felt like nobody was there. That would have been a perfect time to do it. Now that I think about it.
Because even though Del Rio and like I said, he was synonymous with the championships for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
It was either one championship or the other, but it never really felt, if it still felt fluffy. It felt filler. It didn't feel like we were
Yeah,
really concerned with what Del Rio had going on.
it
I
felt like it
remember,
was.
yeah, I remember a small spot where I cared about him in Big Show, but like after that, I don't really remember a lot of his reign. But to put it on Morrison during that time with the heat that everyone had on Morrison,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? It would
I,
have been perfect.
I can agree with that.
Who's your number two?
So my number two, again, we're gonna kick it back to the 80s and 90s here. I'm gonna need D the Toy Hunter to freshen me up on what exact year this was, but as we all know, Bob Backlund, one of the longest reigning WWE, WWF champions of all time. I think he was at 1,000 days, over 1,000 days, something like that. one of the longest reigns in history. However, he did have another reign where his reign was only 3 days. And I think for someone to have a reign over 1,000 days and then have another reign be 3 days, you don't need that. You already established with that 1,000+ day reign. You don't need a 3 day title reign.
Mm.
You could have used that. You could have used that time to push somebody to have a title reign and even longer than 3 days. So I'm going to take that 3 day title reign and I'm going to exit out of history. And the person I'm going to put the title on at that time,
Mm-hmm.
another guy who should have had this title, and another travesty that he's never been world champion, Lex Luger.
Mm.
The fact that Lex Luger, again, another guy who is synonymous with wrestling history, was one of the first people to lift Andre and slam Andre at that SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he hasn't had a world title, or many titles for that matter, is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm going to take Backlund's 3 day reign, cross it out of history, and give Lex Luger a title run.
I like that for Lex Luger. I like that for Lex Luger. He deserved one. Speaking of people who deserve one, I'm mad I couldn't get perfect on this list, but I'm sure this won't be the first time we do this.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely one for Lex Luger, Hall of Famer, just went into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I feel you. That 3 day run wasn't necessary. We could have gave that to
Not
Luger.
at all.
We could have gave that to Luger. The last one I have. This is my controversial take of the pod, of the dark match. Don't hate me for this. I know it'd be taking a core memory from us, from our wrestling friendship, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You and me, I believe was it Battleground? I believe
Yes.
it might have been the same night we saw AJ real life mad about
Kevin Owens.
the way the US title match went and throwing like a real fit after the match that nobody saw but us.
Yeah.
The same night we see a Punjabi prison match with the great Khali, Jinder Mahal, and Randy Orton with the Singh brothers going through the tables. I had to take this moment away because the last one I have is Jinder Mahal's run in
Mm-hmm.
2017. Now, not that I don't understand what the run meant for his people and his country and everything that, well, not his country, but but his people
His
and
heritage.
his heritage and what they were trying to do at the time. I totally get it, right? I understand what and I am saying this right around King and Queen of the Ring. This was not planned, but I would take that run away simply because I believe there was a few runs during the SmackDown Live era where, even though this might have been a Raw title at the time, I'm not sure, but
No, it was SmackDown.
it was SmackDown, right? So that
Yeah.
SmackDown Live era where we kind of kept throwing the line back on AJ because the champions we were choosing at the time weren't like real staple holders as champions. So I would take that Jinder run away.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to give 6 months to anybody who deserved it, that really seemed like they had a lot of cachet heading in their career. Let's give it to the Money in the Bank winner in 2017, Baron Corbin. At the height of what his character was supposed to be. In
Oh.
2017, Baron Corbin had all the promise in the world. And the only reason it didn't work out, besides his mouth on Twitter, was them not letting this man cash in. He was one of the first official Money in the Bank jokes. He was one of the first guys that got that Money in the Bank, and they just made a fool of him.
I believe he was the third.
Was he the third?
Yeah.
No, I'm tripping because they definitely had Damian Sandow as a champion before that. As a Money in the Bank wonder before that.
It was Sandow, then John, then him.
John who? John, who's the other John?
Cena.
Well, they didn't make him a joke.
No. But
John just didn't
he
do
was
what he was supposed to do
he was
with
one
the
of the
Money in the
first ones to
Bank
not win
because
the
he's
cash
Captain
in.
America. But they
Yeah,
didn't make a
that's
joke out of him. He just
but
walked
no.
into a situation where he was never going to win.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
But
all it
I
was.
mean, like, to truly like embarrass the guy that won the Money in the Bank, it's like part of the gimmick, had to be Baron Corbin. Um Corbin, we watched him in NXT. We loved Lone Wolf Corbin, and he had gotten this far. Vince hadn't ruined his entrance too much. Like, he was just over enough. They didn't ruin him enough coming from NXT to diminish his potential. And
Hmm.
having that Money in the Bank, that moment for him really showed all the promise they had. And until he opened his mouth and upset whoever he upset back there, and things didn't go his way, I think Corbin had much more potential than we thought Gender had in potential,
Yeah,
especially once he became champion and we realized, like, Gender's in-ring stuff is not as great as these stories that they're writing. And they have to write some really good stories for us to care about these matches.
yeah.
Considering at one point they had to do a Punjabi prison match to get us to see Randy Orton
In Philadelphia, of all places.
lose this championship to Jinder Mahal. You know what I'm
No,
saying? How much
He
easier
didn't
would it have
even.
been?
He didn't even lose it to Jinder in that
He
match.
lost
Remember?
it to Khali. You're right.
No, Randy wasn't even the champion. Randy was
Well,
challenging for
no,
the
Randy
title.
was challenging. You're right. But he lost to Jinder in that match via
Yeah,
all
he
of that help,
via Kali.
via Khali. But it really, I feel like it would have been, again, much like John Morrison, much like Owen Hart, to put the title on Corbin at that time would have been giving him the world.
All right, so you know what? I laugh because it's Baron Corbin,
Yeah.
but what you said makes sense. Corbin was over in NXT.
Mm.
We're going to exclude the second NXT run because that hadn't happened yet. That hadn't came to fruition. So he was over in NXT. His entrance was dope. His in ring was solid for the size he was. Again, it was just the mouth on Twitter and then maybe some stuff backstage. But yeah, that title reign would have definitely sent his career on a different path.
Mm.
So, and if I have to take it at face value, am I putting the title on Corbin or am I putting the title on Jinder? I'm putting the title on Corbin. And no offense to Jinder, but not world champion.
I'd much rather see AJ versus Jinder. I mean AJ versus Jinder, AJ versus Corbin.
Yeah, and IC title, US title, yeah, sure, we could do that with Jinder, but world title, not even,
I think
not
it would have
even
been
thought
even
of.
better as a US title run.
Yeah,
I think I would have been much more okay with it as a US
it,
title run.
it probably would have been more believable as a US title run too.
Alternate universe.
Um, but yeah, another day, another time.
Mm.
But my last one, you went to 2017. I'm gonna go to 2017. And it's interesting because remember in 2017 they had the world champions from each brand meet up at Survivor
They
Series.
did. They did have this. Yes.
So imagine how this would have played out because I'm going 2017 and I'm cheating a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I added in world champions, and one of the world champions I'm going to use is the Universal Championship. Now, as we know, not many people held the Universal Championship for the short time it was around.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the people who did was one Mr. Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar.
Mm.
And Brock Lesnar was feuding with a multitude of people at this given point in time. But one of the people he was feuding with, and they promoed, he had your number. In a time of being over, he had your number. In ring, he had your number. And he was one of the few people to make it look believable that Brock can get beat in this point in time. So I'm going to take Brock's 2017 Universal Championship reign and cross it out of history. And I'm going to give it to Samoa Joe. Samoa
Yes.
Joe at that time was legit. He was great in the ring, still is great in the ring, great on the mic. His merch was flying. He was one of the, aside from him and AJ, they were probably the two best guys you could have put a world title on from TNA in WWE, and you wouldn't have even thought twice about their TNA career. Because people look at AJ now and they know his TNA career, but they don't think about his TNA career with WWE. With Samoa Joe, you could have put that world title on him, and he could have been on the same level as AJ. He was golden everywhere he went. He didn't fail not once in any capacity, whether it was Raw, SmackDown, NXT. He didn't miss the whole time he was there. So with that being said, 2017, Samoa Joe takes Brock Lesnar's title reign. And if I'm not mistaken, by that standard, when Survivor Series would have rolled around, it would have been Lone Wolf Baron Corbin as the WWE champion against Universal Champion Samoa Joe.
That's something the X Division would have wrote.
Yeah. Instead of getting Brock versus Daniel. Are
you ready for like a Corbin reversing a muscle buster into an end of days to see Joe kick out of that? To see Joe take an end of days from Baron Corbin and then kick out. Kick out and then put him in right in the sleeper. Right out of the kick out. Get him in the sleeper.
And at that time, remember, nobody had kicked out of the end of days. Who else better to kick out? Who else better to kick out of the end of days at that point in time than Samoa Joe, the other champion of the other brand?
Man, we got to get out of here. We can't. As much as I want to fantasy book that. But we got to do this again. That does prove that we have to do this again, though. That's a crazy place we ended that to not have planned it at all. And you know what's crazier? I had when we switched out for Brock, I had Samoa Joe as the switch too. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
But I think that's everything for this dark match. Stevie Jobber, I did the intro. You could take us home on this one.
Yes. Real quick, I won't hit the whole cheap plug, but there probably is a link in the description wherever you're finding this. But that's all I got. I am Stevie Jobber.
I am Dangerous Duke.
And one more time for the people, stay up, stay blessed, and Duke as always.
Stay dangerous.
People have been asking me to be the best in the world. Why, Eddie, why?